didn't really dress to be on camera tonight. Uh-oh. Not only am I on camera, I'm probably on.
You are here, moving in our midst. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, working in this place. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, moving in our midst. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, working in this place. I worship you. I worship you. Hey, waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are here, touching every heart. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, healing every heart. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, turning lives around. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, mending every heart. I worship you. I worship you. Hey, we make a miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. That is who you are. Hey, we make a miracle worker, each and every life. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, meeting every need. I worship you. I worship you. Oh, Shande Amazeke Ame.
Good evening. Thank y'all for taking time to join us on our virtual Wednesday night worship experience. Thank you for Jim and Eric for being here tonight as well, and for Mike, who is behind the camera doing all of the work to make sure that this is going out to those of you who are watching right now. So thank you for all of you being here, and for the conversation that we're going to have tonight. We certainly know that in these days that we are presently in, that things are changing quite rapidly, and everything that we did on a normal basis, or did as what we would call quote-unquote normal, is starting to adapt, and we're getting a new normal, and certainly embracing our ability to connect with one another through a virtual experience. So we thank you for taking time to join us tonight. Thank you for being able to really connect with us on this new way of us being able to interact socially. And we certainly want to make sure that we're continuing that, and that's a lot of what tonight is going to be. We're changing our format for the evening in our worship experience, especially following a call that we just concluded, and we'll talk more about that. But we really want to talk about ways that we are working through this, and ways that we're managing, and ways that we can step up and be community. And those of us in church world would say the ways that we can be the church, but the ways that we can be community and be love, and make sure that everyone around us knows that they are loved, and that although we may be physically isolated, spiritually and emotionally, we are not isolated. We have people around us and that are lifting us up, sending positive energy. So that's some of what we're going to talk about tonight. And so as we go through that, I know that there's a slight lag on the Facebook Live feed. So we're just a few seconds ahead of you in real time. But I want to engage with you in conversation. Hi, Dave. I see that you've joined us. Dave Dishman from the West Coast. You're still a little bit earlier over there, so it's not quite evening for you yet. But I want those of you who are joining us online to be able to participate in this conversation. So I want you to be able to tell us some of the feelings and emotions you have. Ask some of those questions. And again, we're going to talk about the call we just had and some future calls and conversations that we're going to take part in, and finding ways that we really can be there for one another right now during this time. So we're going to go start off in prayer. And then we'll dig into the conversation. Again, we are doing things quite differently tonight here on Wednesday night live. And so we're going to go to God in prayer. And actually, the teleprompter is telling me that Jim Manchester is going to lead the prayers of the people. So, Jim, you want me to pray for? Okay. Gracious and loving Creator, we thank you for the opportunities that you give us to continue to find new ways to love on one another, new ways to experience your love. Just when we think we've got it figured out, you present new ways for us to learn all over again just what your love really is. Especially in these moments that we go through now together as a community, together as a world, We certainly see the dramatic impact that the coronavirus has had around the globe. But one of the things we can hold on to is the ways that it connects us as a people, no matter where we are, across all spaces and time, that we come together, we unify, we find ways to love one another, to lift one another up. And we pray, God, that as we go in these days ahead, that you will enable your people, to empower your people and remind them of the power that you have instilled in them to go forth and to be that community that you have called us to be, to share with the world around us love that is so desperately needed, to share with the world around us your grace and your mercy, and to remind us that in and through it all, we will get through this together. Continue to guide us and continue to be with us. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. So, thank you again for those of you who are joining us. Thank you for those who are here present with us tonight. We just concluded a call that took place with several leaders across metropolitan community churches. It gave us an opportunity to have a conversation that we called the church's response to crisis. A few things that have been circulating that I've seen popped up late last week, I believe, and it simply said that to several church members and other folks that were just sharing this, it said to the church members to take time and give your pastor time to get through this, because your pastor hasn't experienced or hasn't led a church through crisis. And so I thought through that, and I said, that is mostly true for many of us, including myself. But that's not true for Metropolitan Community Church as a whole, because we've got a lot of leaders and a lot of pastors who absolutely have led the church through crisis. Our folks led us through numerous crises, I would submit, but primarily in the 80s and in the early 90s, the church led us through the AIDS crisis. So the call that we just had took time to talk about the similarities of COVID-19 and the AIDS crisis, and the ways that it was different, but more importantly, what our response is today and how we can best be there for one another as leaders, as pastors, as church members, as community members, as organization directors and staff members and volunteers and members. How do we come together as a community and get one another through this? So I want to talk a little bit about that and continuing that conversation. We're going to host other conversations with those church leaders and others from around the world to give us a chance to talk about what we do and how we continue to be there for one another. But I want to give you a chance online, an opportunity to share with us maybe some of your thoughts, some of your questions, share with us concerns that you may have. And we will do our best to answer them. And if we don't get answers immediately, we will certainly find answers and put them back out there for you as soon as we have them. The video from earlier will go live on our website. It should already be live on our Facebook page. So you can certainly go back and watch that there, and then you'll see some notes coming out from that to summarize the conversation and some of the action items. I think that's more important. Is that when we have these conversations that we walk away with action items, things that we can do right now. We talk about the things that we're going to be doing and the things that we want to start brainstorming about, but let's walk away with things that we can do, that I, Vance Haywood, can do the moment I walk out of this door or out of this building. Things that I can do to make an impact, things that you can do as you're watching, and things that Jim and Eric and Mike can do, so that we together can really make a difference. So, with that being said, for those of you who are present or those of you online, thoughts and initial thoughts on just how this crisis is impacting you personally.
Well, I think a lot of people, there was a psychologist called Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, and she had the 12 steps of grieving. Mm-hmm. And the first is denial. Mm. And I think at the beginning, denial can be a very healthy thing, because things can seem so overwhelming. What are we going through? What is all this about? But the thing is finally being able to move through denial, because of course if you continue to deny and things happen, you're going to have some problems. And but first of all, I think it's recognizing your emotions, mm-hmm. recognizing your fears, and also understanding that there are other people to help you, as well as the fact that there are other people that you can help. And ultimately, I think we really, as a community, not only as a church, but as a nation, we need to get together, and we need to work through this together.
Yes.
People matter. Really, that's really the important thing. So no matter what your political beliefs are or not, your religious beliefs are or not, we still need to get together and help each other through this.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, I had a, had a phone conversation with a very, very good friend who called today saying that he had heard people saying that it feels like that we are less compassionate than we used to be. It feels like we are so worried about the situation that we're in right now that we can't be generous, we can't be thinking about other people, we can't have empathy, we can't do this. And that kind of took me back, because I am not quite sure. That's not necessarily my response, but I can certainly understand why some people would have that response. And the person who was telling me this didn't have that response. But he was saying that other people are feeling this. You know, it is very normal, Eric, for us to be feeling the fear of what's going on. This is so different. I was talking with another friend last week. Every minute something's changing. We're expecting an announcement to come out from Greg Ford, the chair of our county commissioners, tomorrow about more restrictions that we will need to do in order to be able to survive through this and break the chain of the contagious virus. And all of those things really are fearsome. There's something to be afraid of. We do not like change. But does that mean that we are less compassionate? Well, this afternoon I was out here next to the church where we have the community center going on, and I was able to talk to several of the people, and yeah, they don't like it that things are having to be the way that they are now because of the social distancing restrictions, but they're still grateful. And we're still doing what we do in being helpful to them. You know, one of the things that we've noticed is that whenever a campaign, a fundraising campaign goes up on Facebook or on Mighty Cause, I remember whenever it would initially go up, and within an hour or two, $500 would be given or $1,000 would be given. And so for those same kinds of campaigns right now, you know, we're kind of hoping that we would get more response from it, but where $1,000 was expected, now we're getting $100. And I think that's happening all the way through, and it relates to this fear thing. We're afraid that if we let go of some of our treasure, that we might not have it when we need it. So maybe my friend on the phone was right. Maybe we are being less compassionate, having less empathy for other people. But now I hope we can turn that around.
I hope we can, and I think there's ways that we can do that, but it's certainly going to be trying because things look different right now for us, and there are so many unknowns. That's one of the other things is that I think as we at least get through the coming days and weeks, and with where we're at with COVID or with the coronavirus, where we're at with that is we're still on that upswing of the bell curve. We haven't gotten to the peak yet. We haven't flattened the curve yet. Oh, there you go.
Sorry.
We haven't.
Sorry.
We haven't flattened that curve yet. We haven't seen the height of this happen, and so once that takes place, I think and we have more data, because this is still very new. We don't know when a cure is going to be available. We don't know, are there enough tests? Are there enough respirators? I mean, there's so many questions out there. What, am I going to have a job next week? And so we've got all these questions that are there. And so as we try to navigate that, a lot of it comes back to the unknown. And then we also have these different ways that we have to greet one another. Particularly here, we're a very loving community, and we want to hug on you. We want to shake your hand. And that isn't possible right now in most cases. And so we have to stop and think about that and find ways that we can. Just like I shared on the call earlier, it's painful for me to be able to walk out there and talk to folks but not be able to hug them. We are being creative and tapping feet occasionally so that we can at least still have some contact. And so we have to be cognizant that some people need that physical touch, that hug, because it may be the only thing they're going to get. And so we have to find new ways to hug people. We have to find new ways to be there for them.
And we could speak of love as well.
Yeah.
I know a lot of times for us guys, mine growing up, it was really, really difficult to say I love you, especially to another guy. And a sincere I love you means a great deal.
Yes.
A great deal. Even more so than a hug. And so we need to get together. And the wonderful thing about human beings are that we can change. I was not born a compassionate person. I was not born a patient person. Still not patient. But we can change those things, can't we? I can't change the color of my skin, but I can change pretty much everything else. And that's going to be a challenge, an opportunity to grow. And we're going to need each other in that, because I need somebody to say, Eric, you need to be a little bit kinder here. Eric, you need to be doing this. And for me to be grateful for that input. So we need each other.
We do. We need each other. We need to say I love you. We need to do what our moderator just a few moments ago shared with us, is write letters to people. I loved what she said. You can't hang an email on a mantle. You can't. I mean, I guess you could print it out and hang it on that. But the sentiment of a card arriving in your mailbox, or a letter arriving in your mailbox, those things we can hold on to. And right now, I think it's more important for those types of communication. Certainly embrace the technology so that we can reach people, but let's look at some of the other ways that we can do that as well. And for many folks, sitting down and writing a letter is a lost art form. And so I think there's ways that we can bond together and show those ways that we love one another and that we truly care for one another. Dave pointed out a couple of things on here that several states have now gone into these stay-at-home policies or stay-at-home mandates. In Durham County here, Durham, the city of Durham, just issued that today that will take effect here locally tomorrow afternoon at 6 o'clock. And then we are expecting the Wake County Commissioners to do the same, as Jim mentioned, tomorrow morning. We should hear from them and get their latest updates. And he was pointing out how important it is to stay home unless you have to get out. And you're absolutely right, Dave. That's how we flatten this curve sooner than later. That's how we make a dent in this thing and stop the spread. It does put us into that place of physical isolation, and I think that's part of the fear. So we do have to think about that. But we again find new ways to come together and still share with one another and to still connect with one another through media, through our various forms of communication and technology that we have. But we can't forget, I'll keep going back to this, we can't forget those who don't know how to use social media, that don't have social media, or those that don't have the technology to be able to connect. My grandmother and I are talking daily by the telephone, but she doesn't have a way for me to FaceTime her. And so I'm corresponding with her also through letter, so that we still have a better way of communicating. And maybe I'll print out a picture of me and send to her and tell her that's our FaceTime. So we'll get a chance to do that maybe. But you're right, Dave. Stay home if you don't have to get out. Help others, and in some of that downtime that we have, that's when we can be picking up the phone and calling somebody, or texting, or emailing, or taking times to do those written communications. And spending some time, for those of us in faith community, spend time in prayer and meditation, praying for some of our workers, healthcare workers that are out there on the front lines, other service industry folks who are now without jobs or don't know when they're going to be able to go back to their jobs, reaching out to them, helping find resources for people who are in need of resources. So there's many ways that we can come together as a community. And hi, Reverend Wanda Floyd just joined us as well. So welcome and thank you for joining us. And I'll repeat it again. For those of you joining us on Facebook, please take time to comment or send your questions in, or just share with us how you're feeling and let us know what we can do to help or what we can do to maybe answer your questions.
There is a slight delay, so from what we say and what you see. So we're not ignoring you.
Yes.
Well, you mentioned about internet connection.
Yes.
And a lot of people don't realize that electricity, of course, has been here for many, many, many years. But most of the people who lived in the rural areas did not have it because the power companies thought, well, it's not conducive, it's not profitable to wire up this country. And so that during the Depression years, the administration of FDR, there was actually a program that did that. And they brought power to everyone. And I would encourage you to call your Congress people, and maybe the federal government can start doing that.
Yeah, with internet connectivity.
It's really, I used to think, well, you really don't necessarily have to have that, but I really think you do now. I really do think you do.
Well, from the earliest days of our faith, one of the hallmarks of a faithful people is that we get together to have a meal. We get together to talk. And not just with our own family, yes, that's important, but we get together with a whole bunch of people, particularly on special occasions as a larger family, to be able to, I mean, that's a part of the narrative of our faith tradition, that every Friday night, let's go have a barbecue together. And so whenever that's disrupted, how are we going to have our barbecue on Friday night or Sunday morning or whatever it is that we want to have it?
And that's where we can, for those of us who do have the luxury of having technology at hand, we can certainly host. We're going to host one this Friday night. If you haven't seen it, you'll see it coming out. We're going to host a happy hour at 5 o'clock this Friday evening. And we'll do that virtually through Zoom. And so the links will be posted out for folks to do that. And we'll invite you to grab your beverage of choice. You choose what it is. And we'll come together and have that time together.
We might even
virtually.
sing some songs during
We
happy
may
hour.
sing some songs. Y'all certainly, if you watched this past Sunday, you heard me singing Sweet Hour of Prayer, and I promise you I will not put you through that again. So,
I need a drink.
Make that promise, but remember it's up to the sound.
Thank you, Mike.
That is up to the sound techs, and they can be cruel to me if they want to be. Or actually, you know what? It's cruel to y'all. That's what it is. And God bless our sound techs and those folks who are back there making all of this happen. But yeah, we'll create opportunities like that we can come together. Our worship experiences are absolutely online. One thing that is a realization to me right now is that as we look at this not shelter in place, but stay-at-home order that is likely coming out tomorrow, is this is likely one of the last times for several days or weeks that you will see a group of us gathered here and able to actually be present with you in a single room. We may be joining together through Zoom and other chat formats that we can still see each other, but we won't be physically present in the same space. But we embrace different ways like that. So a couple of the ways that we're doing that, we're continuing to look for additional ways. If you've got suggestions, we certainly welcome those. But we'll have our happy hour that will take place this Friday night at 5 o'clock. We've got Sunday worship that happens Sunday morning at 10 o'clock virtually. We'll have a Sunday evening because we do realize that coming together component is so vitally important. So we're going to have our prayer and share again this Sunday evening. So we invite you to come. We sit down sit down in front of our computers and just have a call and give ourselves a chance to talk about the way things are going, how life is impacting us. And then we close out in prayer just to give ourselves a chance to come together, and you can join for some or all of that time if you're willing to do that. And then we have other opportunities. You can check those out on our website for the ways that we are creating those experiences. But again, even in creating those experiences, we do have, in all of those experiences, the beauty in that is that you don't have to have technology for those one-on-one experience or those group chats like that, because you can call in as long as you have a phone. You can dial a number and call in even if you don't have the technology to be able to join us through web conference. So we won't be able to see your smiling face if you do that, but you will be able to call in and say hey to us, and we certainly would appreciate those opportunities. And again, we're going to create as many of those as we possibly can as we move forward and get through this. And Dave is saying, yes, there are absolutely several churches that are creating opportunities through virtual experience. Several folks are doing that right from the living room and right from their home, which is kind of important for us in Metropolitan Community Churches because all of this started in a living room. Our denomination as a whole, a global movement, started in a living room, and St. John's Metropolitan Community Church started in a living room, in a studio apartment living room. So it was actually in the middle of the living room and bedroom all at the same time, I think, so they told me so. So there's beauty in that, and we can embrace some of those good things that Reverend Karen Ziegler shared with us earlier, that sometimes we have to stop and just breathe as we start to deal with those things that are fearful for us, those things that are scary, those unknowns. We have to take time to stop and breathe. And then as we do that, stop and look at the ways that we are being challenged to do things in a new way. Stop and take a moment to look at some of the good that's coming out of this, the ways that people are being invited to connect.
We're not alone. We're not alone.
Yeah. And that's the other important thing, I think, that this is reminding us, is this global pandemic, this global crisis, is impacting every one of us. There is nobody that I'm aware of, there's nobody on the face of the planet that is not impacted by this at this point in time, or that won't be impacted by this. And so this is truly a global pandemic that is, it certainly will impact us in various ways, but it reminds us that all of us go through things, and that all of us are going through this together. So it invites us to connect with one another around that, around our similarities, around our differences, and around our uniqueness, and embracing those things and sharing with one another how we get through this. Because I've been telling folks, and I know I'm not the one that created this, but we will get through this together. Together is how we get through this. And we have to lift one another up as we go through this.
But we also need to be vigilant about civil rights as well, I think, because very often these kind of things can happen. And you think about during the Second World War, the Japanese Americans were put in concentration camps. And these things can really happen. It's really easy to try to find people to blame. And we really need to be vigilant about that. We really, really do. It's important.
Yes. Yes. It oftentimes when we get in moments of grief and great trial, we want to find something or someone to blame in that. You're absolutely right. We have to be cautious around those times. And really look, I think it was Mr. Rogers or someone that said, in times of great crisis, look at the helpers. When you start to find yourself in the middle of a great crisis, look for the helpers. And so if you find yourself in the middle of crisis or in the middle of fear and you don't know what else to do, look for the folks who are there to help. And maybe that'll bring some bit of solace to you.
Well, and that's a good segue. A lot of people may have missed the President mentioning it. I see Mr. Brown is with us. I suspect if he hasn't already been called up to active duty, he will be one of those folks. But we are, our country is activating our National Guard and reservists to do work here. The general concept is to be prepared to help set up hospitals as needed, etc. But it means we're going to see something in this country that most of us have never seen, which is military activity happening in our towns. And we need to understand that these people are the helpers. They are the ones concealed weapon permit. He rightfully cites that because that's an in-person thing, that it's not safe for employees in that to do the in-person steps. But the reality is it coincides with the request for permits and applications of the permits almost quadrupling. Used to be about 93 permits a day were applied for, and nearly 400 now a day are being applied for. That means a lot of people are very, very scared. And one of the ways I find to address my fear is to stop focusing on me. So, with our former service members being called back into active duty, they have kids at home, and now they need someone to take care of them or check in on them. A good friend of mine, he and his wife are former military. He happens to be chief of police of a town in the Midwest as well. Well, they're both called up, so he was given a little extra time because he had to get his town set for him to be able to leave as chief of police. But they have 2 teenagers. Someone's got to care for those teenagers. You know, as mom and dad are off caring for other folks. So we really need to look for different ways to connect. And you know, Jim, I very much hear you and what your friend mentioned about our fears and how that's attacking our generosity. So I want to share a couple notes of good things that have happened.
Mike, one thing, I'm getting a comment that they can't hear you, so I don't know if yours turned on to play through the system. I just want to make sure that we can get folks to hear.
Hopefully. I'm showing on my system, hopefully they can hear
Okay,
me.
all right, that's fine. I just want to make sure we're hearing you. Okay.
Sorry about that. Again, being the sound tech, I'm not used to talking into the microphone.
I know we're propelling you into, you're both behind the camera and in front of it tonight.
Yeah, and we really need to check on the elderly people, those who are not able to do certain things, and not just say, well, that's not my responsibility. It is. And it's so important.
Yeah. Sorry, Mike, didn't mean to interrupt.
But a couple positive notes. So we have a small town here, about 30,000 people, called Fuquay-Varina. A person in that town 7 days ago said, you know, seeing that all the small businesses downtown, the brick and mortar shops were having to close or change operations, were going to lose money. So decided to set up a fund very quickly. They have in 7 days raised over $100,000.
Wow. Wow.
So it's there, it can happen, but people are afraid of their money.
Yes.
I'll tell you the article, you know, Vance was great and agreed to talk to a reporter with the Huffington Post about the community center and how this is affecting that group of population. In sharing that around, I had someone go and empty their wallet last night and hand me everything they had. So
Beautiful. That's wonderful.
Yes, that is absolutely amazing. Wow.
Well,
Wow.
and when people start to feel lonely, when people start to feel that depression coming onto them, I was listening to an NPR radio program yesterday, maybe the day before, that said what we really need is to remember our 3 people. We need 3 people that we can call and find out how they're doing.
Yes.
Because whenever we're asking how they're doing, they're going to start asking how we're doing. And as long as we're communicating with 3 people, we'll make it through this. That's what the gist of what the person was saying on the program. And I so completely agree. We need that, and we can do that. And it's not hard to have 3 people. Now, maybe somebody doesn't have 3 people. Maybe somebody only has 2. Maybe somebody doesn't have anybody. We'll call up here. What's our number? You spouted it off?
Yeah, 919-834-2611.
There it is.
Yep.
Call our number, and we'll make sure that you can get to to have at least one, maybe two, and maybe even three people
Yes,
to talk
yes.
to.
And if you just want somebody to call and check on, we need folks to help us with that. So again, that number, I'll put it on the recording as well, is 919-834-2611, 2611. And you can also reach us at relief at stjohnsmcc.org. We've got folks answering the phones pretty much around the clock at this point. There's one installed in my home, just so we can make sure that we don't miss anybody, and we're checking the voicemails regularly if you go to voicemail. We want to make sure that people have some ways to be able to reach out. So if you need something, call us. If you know somebody that needs something, call us. If you want to be one of the folks helping do the checking, call us. We need folks to do all those things. And the screen did freeze. I apologize. It's back working now, I believe. So we're keeping on rolling on the live side, and just the beauties of technology as we navigate our ways through these things.
And for all of them, you should now be able to hear me a lot better.
Okay.
There was another adjustment I needed to make to what's actually feeding out to Facebook as opposed to here in the room. So thank you, Dave, for continuing to let us know. And anytime anyone is having a problem hearing or that, let us know, and we'll make adjustments.
Yes. And again, this technology thing I shared with the panel that I met with today or this evening, all of us came together. We did it through Zoom, and I sent them a message this afternoon. I said, look, I'm learning Zoom in the last 2 days, so bear with me as I figure this thing out. And some of them came back and said, we've learned it within the last week too, so we're all getting together and getting to know new technology. So bear with us as we go through this. And the exciting part of this is it expands what we're able to do. One of the things I'm really excited this coming Sunday that we're going to have the opportunity to do is to share with you people engaged in our worship service from various parts of the world. We have some folks that are from Brazil that will be joining us in worship this coming Sunday. Folks from Omaha, Nebraska joining us in worship, and I'm in communication with folks in Kenya and in Cape Town, South Africa, that will be joining us in the weeks to come. So we're finding new ways to be able to connect with people all over the place and realizing just how connected we all really are. And again, just giving us a new way to love on one another. So does anybody, and Mike, Dave is telling us that was much better, so you got it worked out. So thank you for doing that. And again, thank you all for the feedback. We are coming up on the hour, and we'll start to wind down here. Any other last thoughts or comments of things that we want to take with us for tonight?
Well, I'll repeat it since I know some people may not have been able to hear. It's all about what was captioned, and I can toss back up here. It's really all about us reclaiming our hope. I think that's the place that people are in right now, is they feel hope is lost. Hope is gone. They don't know where to look for hope. And I know Jim up there will agree 100% with me. The first place to look for hope is to look for God. And the first place to look for that is the person sitting next to you, or the person you're seeing on the video, or the person on the other end of the phone. And find your hope through God, through the people you can connect with any way you can.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Do y'all have anything else? Continue loving on one another. Continue finding new ways to take an old saying from our former pastor, Reverend Brendan Boone: be Jesus with skin on. Go out and be the church to the world. Go out and share love with the world. Go out and just lift one another up. Wash your hands. Don't touch your face. Learn to do namaste or learn to sign language with folks and tell folks you love them. But whatever you do, come together in love. Pick up a pen and a piece of paper and write somebody. If you don't have money for stamps, let me know. I will find a way of getting you some stamps if you need stamps to get letters out to people. If you need some people to write, let us know. We've got people that would love to hear from you. but come together in this time of crisis, this time of great fear and anxiety, and let's celebrate together the ways that we can connect and the ways that we can embrace love in new ways. And as we get in those moments, again, just reminding ourselves to stop and take a breath. Stop and just listen. Think about the ways that folks are going out there and helping. Mike telling those stories of people that are just going above and beyond to make sure that needs are met. That's what it's all about. Somebody, I won't call them by name because I didn't get permission, but somebody shared with me that they were reading in Acts chapter 2, I believe, about what the early church looked at, and it was all about going out and caring for people and the community coming together and making sure that we take care of one another. And that's what it is today. Our community today is called to stand together, to go forward together and to love one another. Yes. Yes, absolutely. So take those moments and do that. Be there for one another. Share with one another. Love on one another. Let us know what we can do to be there for you. Again, reach out to us by phone or email and let us know what we can do or ways that if you want to get involved. We certainly need volunteers. Even in these moments, if the stay-at-home order is issued tomorrow, we are still operating and serving meals to those in need. And so we've gotten word from the county commissioners that our service is considered an essential service or essential service in the community, so we will continue to operate that service in new ways and in new safe ways to keep the volunteers and the people receiving the services safe. But we've got a whole lot of folks out there that don't know where their next meals are coming from because they've now lost their jobs. And so the meal program that we run is more important now than ever. We've got folks who needed the meals already, and then now folks who are newly looking for ways to be able to continue to provide for their families. So look for ways that you can get involved and that you can be one of those helpers, and look to ways that we can support one another, and certainly lifting up our healthcare professionals, our first responders, the emergency management folks, and our leadership as they try to find ways to lead us through what is an unprecedented crisis and a rapidly evolving situation as we learn new information. Mike, did you have something before we close out?
Just quickly, because the way Facebook works, not everyone who follows will necessarily see a post. The hope is, and I know some people definitely fighting for it, that public transit will continue to operate after tomorrow's order. So anyone who may be dealing with that work loss, and this is their first time, they're like, I can't spare the money for gasoline, but I've got to go get food. Right now, all buses in the Go Triangle system are absolutely free.
Yes.
So if you need to get somewhere and you're really concerned because your funds are running low, there should be a transportation option for you. You will enter the bus through the back door, not the front door, to help keep you as well as the driver safe. And that's part of the reason for fares being free, is you don't need to be touching the fare box in any way, shape, or form. For those who have disabilities or stroller with kids or so on, they can still use the front door because that's how the bus kneels and where the bus kneels so that they can get on better. But transportation's there. So for those of you who need it, so if someone's trying to do a job shift, that they're unemployed and looking at an opportunity at a more essential job, whether they have some skills in healthcare, whether it's working at a grocery store, and they need to figure out a way to get there, look to the bus system as a great way to do it. And maybe longer term, more people will ride the bus and we'll have a little greener of a planet as well.
Yes. I'm excited about the bus system.
Adopt a pet.
Well, yes.
Adopt a pet.
Well, thank y'all for taking time to be with us tonight. Thank you for joining us online. Thank you for those of us who are here and for being willing to be present. Jim and Eric have been with me since about 3:30 or 4 o'clock. Actually, Eric's been with me since about 1 o'clock this afternoon, and Jim's been with me by phone since about 6 o'clock this morning and in person since about 4. as we prepared for tonight's call that we had just before this. So thank y'all for being with me in and through this. Thank y'all for joining us online. We're going to go, since this is our worship experience on Wednesday night, we are going to go into our time of communion. We encourage you to find ways to commune with one another, or to commune if you're in a space where you're by yourself. Find ways to bring yourself to the table that God invited you to, reminding yourself of the love that God exhibited for us in and through the sacrifice that was made. Knowing that in and through that love, we're able to love one another now. And we're called to love one another now. There's a responsibility that is placed on us to love one another now like never before, and to share that love with everybody we meet. Amen. Again, we encourage you to go out and to love one another, to be there for one another, and to share with one another the love that we are called to embody. Go out and find new ways to be the helpers. And we're going to play Waymaker again just for you, Ronnie, because we know that in these moments we need to be reminded of the Waymaker. So enjoy that song. Go out and enjoy yourself and enjoy one another in new ways, meeting the challenge that we have before us, and knowing that together we will get through this. Amen.
worship you. You are here, working in this place. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, moving in our midst. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, working in this place. I worship you. I worship you. Hey, we make a miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. We make a miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are here, touching every heart. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, healing every heart. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, turning lives around. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, mending every heart. I worship you. I worship you. Hey, we make a miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. That is who you are. Hey, we make a miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You wipe away all tears. You mend the broken heart. You're the answer to it all. Jesus, you wipe away all tears. You mend the broken heart. You're the answer to it all, to it all. Jesus, yeah. We make miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. We make miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are here, touching every life. I worship you. Oh, shadadabakasa. I worship you. You are here, meeting every need. I worship you. I worship you. Oh, de 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 de, bo shande yamazeke ya.